see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
Denny, welcome to the Awards Tour podcast. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, finally, all of the we don't have to worry about spoilers. We can talk everything. It's funny to talk about spoilers for a movie that was made, 50 plus years ago. But I will say what you did in Dune Part 2 was just simply incredible. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, since it's come out, what's been the most satisfying part of the reception and the release?
Oof, it's a big question. The thing is, I would say when we released Part 1, it was at the end, if people remember, it's at the end of the pandemic. And it meant that people were going back to the theater, but there was it was not like it was not allowed to. I was not allowed to be in contact with the crowd that much. We were not allowed with the audience. It was compartmentalized because of the pandemic, And so when we did the press tour for Part 2, it was the first time that I was finally meeting the fans of the first film. And I was destabilized by the amount of energy I received, the amount of appetite for the second one, the joy that the first movie had brought. That was my favorite thing, to feel that as a filmmaker, as an artist, you want to participate, you want to be in a relationship, and to feel that there was somebody else at the other end that listened, that received the first movie with joy. That meant the world to me.
That's a great thing to be moved by. I mean, listen, putting this out this time and getting that instant crowd reaction. I mean, you made a crowd, I wouldn't say pleaser movie, but it is very much an audience movie where you want to see it with other people. And one thing I think is interesting, it's a book that, is from the 60s, but you still managed to surprise us, even on the premiere night, when Anya Taylor-Joy walks out and everyone just loses it. So that was a secret that obviously you had kept under wraps for a while. I just have to go to that because I've been wanting to ask you about, first of all, brilliant casting. Second of all, you're a very quiet and tricky individual, sir. So yeah, give us when she got involved and how you knew that you were going to make that change with that character.
I knew that early on, before I shot Part 2, that Anya will be Alia. I knew that she was the one. I had met her as I was prepping Part 2. I knew the character was will be mostly seen only in the womb of her mother, but I knew that it would be her voice. I knew that when we were doing the shape of the baby, of the animatronics, it was like thinking about Anya's features. I was and I loved how in Part 1 we had we throw, let's say, ideas that will be find their fulfillment in Part 2. We barely met Stilgar, barely met Chani in the first movie, but we had hints of those characters that finally we will fully embrace in the second part. And I wanted to have that same thing for the future. I wanted to create some bridges like that, like with Princess Irulan, and more specifically, and with Alia's character that will be played by Anya. And there was a window of opportunity at one point where that I was obsessed with this idea of watching her walking by the ocean, getting off the desert, and that scene. It was a scene that was a bit tricky because it was involving a trip into Namibia in Africa. And I had to make sure that it was the deal I had made with this. That's the truth. I had made with the studio was, if I was trying to be very disciplined to make sure that there will be money left, a pocket left to go to Namibia. So for me it was like a kind of gift that I was giving to myself as a filmmaker to have that. And when we did it, I did it. The idea was, Hollywood is the most gossip town. I mean, it's very difficult to hide something in Hollywood. So it was a game. I said to Anya, I want it to be an ultimate secret. I want people to find out about it when we're going to walk the red carpet at the premiere. And how to do this is that it meant that the crew that was involved, we did it with a small unit in Africa. And everybody in the plane, the charter that was bringing us there, had to swear. I went to each technician, that 25 people that were in that plane, saying, guys, you are the only one knowing that there's an actress here that is not supposed to be here, that is with us. And I would love you, please, if you could keep the secret. Nobody saw the dailies. Warner Brother didn't knew about that. And the dailies were kept secret. And when we were mixing the film, doing the sound, her face was always blurred. Her face was revealed only at the very end in the last DI session. And again, I had Dave Cole had to swear on the Bible that he will not show reveal the secret. It was like really like a secret mission. We were really trying, and even when we were doing press screenings, her face was blurred at the beginning. The idea was to try to, and I cannot believe we succeed. I was sure at one point it will leak, and it didn't, to my great satisfaction. And yeah, we laugh a lot about that.
This only gets me more excited for what you're going to do in part 3, and trust, we're going to talk about it. But I don't know if you remember this, but I think back to when you were working on Dune Part 1 and you came to our conversation at the Oscars luncheon and we were talking about it. And I, along with a lot of Black women, would say there was not enough of Zendaya in Part 1. And you had already like heard it at that point from, I think, every Black woman that you came in contact with, because we were all like, what's up with our girl? And you were so like, she's coming, we're going to give her more. And then when we got to see part 2, the more that you gave her, I really do feel there was like a little Black girl on your shoulder being like, give her more. Like, let's get this character more depth. Let's give her more arc. And obviously with an actress like Zendaya, she demands that. But really talk about how you changed the Chani role, not even changed it, made it more, I would say, represented in the film explicitly, and gave her a lot more to do in this one.
When the book was released in 1965 or so, Frank Herbert was disappointed by the way the book was perceived by some readers who saw in the book a celebration of Paul Atreides. And he wanted to do a cautionary tale, a warning against colonizer, about a warning against messianic figure. He wanted Paul to be an anti-hero in some ways. And he wrote another book, a second book, called Dune, Messiah, to correct that perception. And the screenwriter John Spate and I knew that. We knew that what was his initial intentions and how he was disappointed about the way. And in order to not to fall into the same trap, knowing what he had done, knowing Dune Messiah, having read it, we came with the idea that a way to make sure that Paul will not be seen as a hero will be to use Chani. Chani in the book is a believer, a follower. She's in the shadow of Paul, and she follows him. And she becomes, in the second part of the book, less interesting, in my humble opinion. But she has that, it's a character that when we meet her, she has a lot of fire, a lot of personality. She's a strong character. So we use that strength to create someone that will give us a different perspective on Paul's journey. And in the third act, suddenly we shift the point of view of the movie, becomes much more of Chani's. We still Paul's story, but we see her, the way she looks at him, become a comment on his journey, and we can create that kind of critic destiny. We can see how Paul deviated from the good to go to the dark side through Chani's eyes, and so technically the whole movie is structured on how to reach that, and on the relationship. The whole movie is structured on their relationship, the birth of their love, the birth of their intimacy, how they fell in love, how Paul falls in love with the woman and the culture in the same time, and how their relationship is tested by reality, by the politics of the world, and how they break. And that's in that session that because of the politics, Chani becomes give us that very important distance. I knew the movie would be a success if we believe in that relationship, and if people understood where Chani stands for. And for that, I had the most powerful weapon, which is Zendaya, who is an insane actress. And that's why I knew that when I was talking to you at the luncheon, I knew that she will become it's Paul Atreides' story, but she becomes a prominent character, a very important, as important almost in the second part, because she's become our moral compass.
Yeah, the moral compass and the look she gave him. I saw a lot of women comment on this. I wonder if it reached you that she gave the look that every woman gives when you realize your man ain't. Like that's like the universal look for like he is on some straight. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I felt there was a lot of really. It's a bigger thing. Obviously, we're talking about a
Mm.
holy war, but between those two people, that is a very I don't know universal moment.
Yeah, it's that's what you have to reach as in the movie is when the people can relate, can people
Mm.
can have empathy and relate and believe in the intimacy of the intimate experience of a character, and that Zendaya gave me gold in front of the camera. I was like, I had a fantastic actress that was delivering everything without words. I love, there's nothing more than I love than when an actor can convey ideas and precise emotions without words, just by the way they react to what's happening in front of them. And I knew that I had a conversation with the studio about it, saying, Chani doesn't have a lot of lines at the end. I said, but you won't need it. I will make sure that her journey, her experience is seen, felt on screen, but it's through reaction. And I was putting a lot of pressure on Zendaya on this, of course. I mean, she had to express everything with her eyes most of the time, but it's like that's the way she did it. The way the great actors can do it. I mean, she's a fantastic actor.
Yeah. I mean, the entire cast, I feel like honestly, you pretty much had the entire young Hollywood list in your movie, sir, of actors that
Mm.
everyone is excited to see what they do. Led, of course, by Timothée Chalamet. Interestingly enough, having him as Paul Atreides, having read the book, I can see seeing Timmy's filmography, how he can play the boyish prince who's too young to lead. I could see that in him. But in this second one, that sort of like lethal and brooding and all of the other stuff that he had to bring into this one, I didn't necessarily see that in him. Obviously, you're a brilliant director, you did. But talk about your conversations with Timmy about that turn and how you wanted him to make that turn in this one, because it is a lot. You know what I mean? He's fairly rarely feels settled in this movie, ever.
Timothée has the weight of the shoulder, sorry, has the weight of the movie on his shoulders on both
Yeah.
movies. A spectacular job. I mean, I'm so proud of what he did on both movies. More specifically, to refer what you were talking about is I knew that he had that in him to have seen it in previous work. I knew that he had that commanding, that strength, that power, that commanding power. And funny enough, in the part one, I had to dim it down all the time. I had to say, "You're still the boy. You're just the victim of the events right now." And I felt he was a bit reluctant, a bit impatient to finally become the leading character. And I think that we had a lot of fun seeing him, let's say, expand and grow in front of the camera as we were showing part two. And I remember being absolutely floored and also relieved when he did that fantastic scene where he becomes the Lisan al-Gaib, the messianic figure, when finally he used his religious power in
Yeah.
order to lead the Fremen. And in that scene, Timothy showed how incredibly can become Shakespearean.
Yeah, it was
Mm.
Shakespearean. That's the best way to put it. Again, he's already done Shakespeare once on screen. I'm curious for you. There's something that you had said because you and Hans Zimmer are both huge Dune heads. I don't know if that's the word, but I'm using it. And you were both worried about the childhood dream of this adaptation if your adult efforts could meet that. And I know you've said that that scene with him riding the sandworm, you felt like you touched the
Mhm.
dream. I'm curious between both movies, what are those moments where you feel like you were close, like where you were making the, I don't know, 10 or 12-year-old Denis proud with what you got on the screen? Like what
I
are
would
those
say
other
that
scenes for?
there's like I feel that everything involving the desert, and when we are in
Mm,
the desert, with the Fremen, when Paul meets is chased by the worm in part one and meets with the Fremen for the first time. There are moments there when the Stilgar and the Fremen are around Lady Jessica and Paul that feels so close to what I had in mind. Or when Lady Jessica and Paul are wandering in the desert looking for the Fremen, that felt very close to. And in part two, again, the sandworm riding, the battle at the end felt very close to what I had in mind as a kid. And the Gedi Prime, the Arcanen, everything involving the Baron and Fedrota, the design of the planet, the atmosphere of the planet, there's hints of what I had, the images that I had when I read the book as a kid.
I love that. Okay, little bit of correcting the record. Also, after part two, you were very clear that you needed to take a big break before you went into Messiah, because you said, for my sanity, I need to take some time away from it. And then, like I heard a month later, you finished the screenplay. So what is it?
It's let's say that I'm here to talk about part two, but I will say this. It's just that I when you finish those, I did both movies back to back. And I remember finishing the press tour, the award campaign, and the next morning of the morning after Academy Awards, I didn't went to a beach or a country house to sleep for 2 weeks. I went straight into prep. My crew was waiting for me in Budapest. We were like already prepping the film, and I started the movie a bit, let's say, running on fumes, and I was like concerned about that. I was like, and what kept me alive through the shoot, because those are long shoot, are the actors and actresses, their performances. It really pulled me forward, and I must say I was a bit more grumpy on part two than part one because I was tired. But so when I finish that story, make a short story, it's just that I was saying to myself, the deal I made with myself, I'm gonna do the second one now, give all I got. And when the movie finished, I was out of it. I had no more energy, and I just wanted this time to go hide in the woods and sleep for 3 months. Which, after a few, I realized something strange happened, is that I was not expecting. And by the way, I said to all my crew, everybody said, "Go away. I'm done. I'm done. I won't do something this year. I won't." But after the woods were very good to me. They were like, and I realized quickly that the thing that the images that kept coming back to my mind, the images were not from another project. It was still from Arrakis, to my great surprise. I was still, the fire was there. I was like absolutely inspired, and I knew I was seeing the Messiah. I thought it would take me years to recover. That I thought I would be fed up with sand. I thought I would want to do something completely different. Here, the muse were calling, strong, very uncompromising call and there's also, I will say, the way part two was received, the appetite for the third one. I think there's something, the joy, maybe it's the joy coming out from the audience. There's something there. I felt a responsibility in some ways, I guess.
I could feel that. Because there's a lot that you set up for 3 in 2. There's so much that is like a down payment on the story.
Yeah, I was really seeing this as a diptych. 2 movies that was echoing each other, and I was feeling that I was closing the story as in the book, by the way. The book finished with the beginning of something big. But I was feeling that it was like really both movies were mirrored to each other, and it was finished. And they could, and I was dreaming to do a third one, but a very different movie. So for me, it's not a trilogy; it's more a diptych followed by something else. But I was thinking that that third movie would be made in the future, far away, and he was there waiting for me somewhere hidden in the woods.
Lovely. No, we're here to talk about 2, but I mean, come on, man. Once I saw Anya, I was like, listen, you're the one that did that. And she's like another one where I'm like, now I want to see it. Since this is awards tour, and I haven't gotten to talk to you about this, but I'm very interested because you are also one of these filmmakers where I feel you have movies like Arrival and Sicario, and so many of your films I think have really passionate audiences behind them. But it's, I don't know, considering how big some of the movies that you've made, I still find that people are discovering things from your filmography that they didn't even know about, like later on. Like they didn't know that you also did Blade Runner and you did this.
Mhm.
Which is the movies that come up the most for you in your life after this whole amount of time? I guess it would be Dune now, probably, but is there anything from earlier that pops up a lot?
It depends. I will say I hear both Dune movies, of course, most of the time. Arrival is a movie that I hear a lot about. It's a movie that I think that touch the heart of people in a way that really moves me. People come to me to say how much they love Arrival. And there's a movie I made many years ago called Incendie when I was in Canada, based on a play, a very famous play here, written by Waji Mawad. That was, I hear from time to time. Sicario is a movie. It depends on which country you are. If I'm in France, people love Prisoners. If
Yeah.
I'm in contact with a custom officer or a policeman or someone from the Secret Service, they will talk to me about Sicario. It's like it depends, but probably the one, Dune and Arrival are the movies that I'm hearing a lot to talk about. Yeah.
You've done a lot of press about both of these movies, let's be real, and you're such a trooper about it, and you've always find new ways to talk about these subject matters. Does this mean, as of right now, because we're about to get ready to go, do you know where you're going to next? If you're going back to Arrakis or if you're going to tell other stories next in your schedule?
Right now, it's like I cannot answer to that because of external forces. I need to, but I know that Arrakis will not wait very long. That's I can say is that it's not something that it will. I will not do part three in 5 years. Like it's close by. Yeah, that's can I can say. Voilà.
Okay. We'll
Yeah.
get Cleopatra before then. Okay, cool beans. I'm just kidding. No.
No, that,
Denny, thank you so much for being here and for the film. I can't wait to see you more on the awards tour. Thank you so much.
thank you very much, Jacqueline. Nice talking to you.